Welcome to Wine Grind. I'm here at the Dream Merchant's Palace with some friends of mine from the wine business. I've got Tim Maxwell over here, who's about 45 years in the business, everything from being a restaurateur to wholesale, and now he's dabbling in the retail end of the business while being a gentleman farmer. Right? Exactly. And I have the Dream Merchant himself, Phil Rislow, who was, what's your degree in?
In immunology.
Immunology. So you could have saved the world from cancer, and you're in the wine business.
And what do you think? Which do you think is more important?
So Phil was in the wholesale business for many, many years. We worked together. And now he's got his own little, what would you consider?
Marketing company.
So we're here today to sort of a cage match between the Zagat Wine Club and the New York Times Wine Club. We did a review earlier on the Zagat Club, and they sent me another box. I didn't realize that I was on the rotating schedule, so I went ahead and kept it, and the New York Times one came in, so we thought we'd take the two of them and see which is the better value on this whole thing. So they all came in the New York Times. You get this nice little poster, which you can hang on your wall. You get this little booklet, which is sort of nice because they give you little menus in there also from the newspaper itself.
I guess they select these to pair with the wines that are in the
yeah, it's sort of a good little thing.
It's a nice idea.
Really? I tell you, it looks like a nice presentation too.
And the Zagat Club, you get your little brochure, and then they also have these little packets which come in when you start the club. They give you a little binder that you can put the little packets on the wine in. You'll see those.
And they do have some recipes in here, I noticed.
Yeah.
It's always fun. Try different.
And those are coming from the Times food editors too, so I think. But the nice thing that happened was the New York Times sent a Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc, Isabella, which is a 2010, and Zagat has a Field of Stones 2010 Sauvignon Blanc from Marlborough. So we thought we'd start out and we'll compare the two Sauvignon Blancs, and then we'll shut it down and we'll go through all the wines. We'll come back and give you a
synopsis.
Very good. So here we go.
So I'm sorry, so the Isabella's
New York Times. They've got the nice little sticker on the back of theirs, so I didn't have to do that.
You said the pricing is identical.
Pricing is not identical. Yeah, it's good point. The Zagat Club with this go around, it averages out to like $14.26 a bottle.
Oh,
so
wow.
They're not inexpensive, you know. And the New York Times, where you only got 6 bottles, they average out to about $19.60 a bottle.
Oh, so neither of them are
right.
inexpensive.
Right, so here we go.
Now, just out of curiosity, the first time I saw you guys do something similar to this, you were tasting through a wine club, and it was a much less expensive.
It was an introductory offer from the Zagat Club.
Okay,
so
at much lower price.
Yeah, that came out to I think like $4 or $5.
Right, that's what that's what
But that was the introductory offer. So once you get sucked into the club, the second shipment goes up to like $14.60.
They figure you're a connoisseur right now.
But then, if you get like, I had 2 bottles of this Pinot Grigio, which I basically had to give away the other bottle because I didn't like it, you know.
So should we interject thoughts as we
taste?
taste
Go
it?
ahead.
I loved the nose on the Isabella, and
it's not very New Zealand.
Not at all. I mean, but you know, when you say that, I think what we talk about as that New Zealand character is almost a caricature of Sauvignon Blanc, and it's almost like it's those exaggerated grassy notes. You get a little bit more of that in the Field of Stones, but even that I find a little subdued. It's not that bad, but the Isabella is very atypical for New Zealand, but I like it. I like it a lot.
It has a nice palate weight.
Yeah.
You know, and it's got like some nice sweetness to it too.
Very refreshing.
Yeah,
it's very refreshing. It's very atypical. It does not have any of that
bracing. It's bracing.
Yeah, but it doesn't have any of that gooseberry, what they call gooseberry. Most of us don't really know what those are, but that tart, tangy, sort of very grassy, aggressive New Zealand character that is kind of the hallmark of Marlborough, but this is a little different than that, the Isabel.
Yeah, you get more of that in the Zagat one.
Right, the Field of Stones is much more of a classic sort of or typical style.
Typical. Yeah.
My personal preference would be the Isabel.
Max? Max was going for a second.
I'm still, almost seems as though one of them's toned down a little bit of Virginia, but I know they're both Sauvignon Blanc.
Well, actually, I don't know what the law is in New Zealand. Do you know?
I don't know. Yeah, I have to look that up.
But I would imagine that, like most regions, it doesn't require it to be 100%.
I think if you're looking at these labels and people that normally drink Sauvignon Blancs, if they picked up the Isabel, they would be slightly disappointed because they're not getting the grapefruit. You know?
Right. If you're looking for, if you're saying, oh, I really love New Zealand Sauvignon Blancs, I love that grassy, slightly herbaceous style, and you see this and you pick it up and you get it home, you're going to say, well, this doesn't really taste like what I thought I was going to get. Yes, the Isabel is very atypical.
I prefer the Isabel, but looking at the both of them, if I were in a store, just looking at the labels, I would pick up the Field of Stone because it's a much nicer presentation. But the Isabel, it almost seems as though it's much softer and more round. And the Field of Stones is more bracing, which
Exactly,
we're
right.
talking about the
Aggressive.
typical one.
It
So
does.
my preference would be the Isabel as well.
I would say your average New Zealand Sauvignon
Sure.
Blanc price these days is $12.99. You can get them down as low as $10.99. And $14.99 is kind of almost a ceiling. Now, there are many more expensive versions, but that is not the norm. So these, if you take that average price as what these cost, certainly at the $19.99, you're way over the average.
But I think that if I bought the Isabel, if I was just buying a Sauvignon Blanc and I bought the Isabel, I spent like, $19 for that. I'd be happy with that for a $19 Sauvignon Blanc. It's got some nice richness to it. It's got some,
It does have the richness.
Yeah.
Right, I would not be disappointed because I like the wine.
Yeah.
And you're right, that's not like way over the top for a good quality Sauvignon Blanc. But what I'm saying is that if you're looking for a good New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, I think you can buy one for $12.99.
You could do far better, yeah.
Right.
But these are shipped directly to you. And
I know, but are we supposed to be factoring them into the equation, or are these supposed to be good values? I guess that's really the question. Neither. I find both of these wines very pleasant and very very user. I wouldn't be disappointed with either of them as a glass of wine, or if I ordered a glass of Sauvignon Blanc at a restaurant, I wouldn't be disappointed with either of these. I think they're both very very palatable and refreshing. And
I think the Isabel will be a little bit more white. You can use it for different things. With this Field of Stones, I would want to pair that with shellfish and fish of some sort. But that Isabel, you could drink that as a cocktail.
aperitif, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I agree.
definitely.
I agree. It's much more versatile. That's a great. It's a great way of.
All right, so the first round goes to New York Times. Remember, this is not a competition, it is an exhibition, and we will taste through all these wines and we'll get back to you at the end with our synopsis. So, thanks. All right, we're back, and we've tasted through all these wines. You people don't realize how much of a chore this is to go through these wines.
It's funny, I just want to comment on that. Everyone assumes that anything you do in the wine business is so glamorous and so much fun, and tasting through a bunch of wines like this it's not horrible, it's not hard, but truthfully, it was tedious this time.
It was tedious. Yeah.
So the consensus is, the winner is?
Well, between the two, I had more thumbs up for the New York Times wines as opposed to the Zagats. But
and this is with Zagat having 3 extra wines in the mix.
Right. So I seem to think that the New York Times put a little more thought and tasting prowess towards their selections. But overall, I was quite frankly a little disappointed in And what we
that
tasted.
you know, if you have a really good wine merchant, and I think that's probably your best bet to kind of explore the world of wines, because in the good old days, that's the way it worked. You know, you had a really good wine merchant, and you go in and say you're looking for something new or interesting or in a particular category, and they would direct you there. My general comments, I agree with you that the New York Times seemed to have a little better quality wines, but they were $5 more a bottle. And you know, when you look at the overall cost and value aspect of the whole thing, I would say that.
Yeah, this is a good example. I mean, this is a wine that I think by consensus most of us thought that was, you know, one of the best representative wines on the. But
and not only was it a high quality wine, or not only was it a wine that we all enjoyed, but it was a wine that was very representative of the appellation that it comes from. And you know, so if you're looking to explore the world of wines and get broader knowledge of what you might want to seek out as a selection for your next dinner party or whatever, you know, the New York Times seemed to do a better job of picking representative examples, and this was a perfect one.
But the problem we have with that is that this is a Côte de Roussillon, and at $19.60 a bottle, which it would come out to with the New York Times Wine Club, you can find similar wines from the Côte de Roussillon that are going to be, you know, similar quality to this at a much lower price.
Right.
And that's the problem that we have with a lot of these wines. A lot of the wines were atypical for what their appellation was. A lot of them had a lot of sweetness to them, which is popular these days, but not necessarily typical of what the appellation should be. And that's the problem we're finding with a lot of these clubs.
I would say that the most important thing for a wine club, if you're trying to introduce people into wines, is to pick wines that are representative of the example of wine. So if you taste something and it's a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, or it's a Côte de Roussillon, or it's a Australian Shiraz from the Clare Valley, you should be able to taste that wine, have some idea of what wines from that category would taste like, and if you like it, you can seek out more from that category. But we didn't find that to be really representative. I mean, that was not exactly what we were experiencing today. So yeah, and this is a one-shot deal for me. I have not tasted through any of the other wines in any of the other you know, clubs or any other.
We will eventually.
but yeah, I mean, overall as an experience, I would say that there were a couple of wines here that were well made, and it's not to say that all the wines in this tasting were not palatable. There were many that were enjoyable, and some of them were somewhat nondescript and may not be representative of their category, but it wasn't that you were going to get a bad wine. I didn't find any of the wines to be really flawed.
What about the showstopper?
Oh, you mean
you referred to as
the palate killer? Yeah, that was a pretty wild one. But in general, I would say overall, I'd say that most of the wines were not bad wines. They were just way overpriced for what you were paying on average per bottle. And what I found most disappointing, because I would expect that a wine club would be a place where you could be introduced to wines from a particular category and get confidence or get comfortable about going back and buying more of those same wines. And the most important thing, I think, is that I don't think these wines were representative of the categories of the places they were coming from.
Yeah, you have wines like this, the Isabel, which is a Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc, which didn't taste a lot like a Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc, but was a good wine.
It was delicious. It was actually one of my favorite wines in the whole tasting.
Yeah, exactly right.
So that's it. I think we'll put all the reviews up on the site. We'll link them all up so you can check them out there. And the New York Times wins by a narrow margin. But again, this is not a competition; it's an exhibition. So.